Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm excited to chat with Cat Valverde, and let me tell you about Cat. Cat is your Cashflow Accomplice, and she is stoked to be ranked among the global top 1% of guests here on our PodMatch. With a reputation for warmth and candor, with joy in her heart, an MBA, a Harvard organizational psych master in progress. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And over 5 million in direct revenue created for clients to date. Kat is excited to laugh, take a deep breath, and crack open the spreadsheets with us. Her focus is digital revenue strategy in the post-ads economy. She's most curious about the part we tend to talk about least in the digital business space. How is it really going financially? Founder of Profesh and a digital marketing expert, Kat is on a mission to bring transparency and fairness into the marketing world. Growing up knowing that her father pioneered the unsavory telemarketing scams of the 80s and 90s, schemes that preyed on elderly and vulnerable, Kat developed a deep-seated commitment to ethical and equitable business practices. This background fuels Kat's passion for creating marketing programs built on transparency, trust, and authenticity. With her latest program, she helps small business re-engage and reactivate with their email list, bringing tailored, data-driven strategies to help them thrive. And she's most excited to connect with SaaS, course creation, agency, and e-commerce teams. So please join me in our discussion today, our conversation about lessons learned from a Conman and a Harvard Business School. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Cat Valverde. Cat, such an interesting story I know behind this. So happy to have you as my guest.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So I always start with two easy questions. The first being, where do you live? Where do you call home?
I am in Austin, Texas.
Oh, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great song out there right now about Austin.
Is there?
By Dasher. So there's a plug for Dasher.
Okay, check it out.
So we are really listening to, as I was going through this, we listened to kind of part of your journey, and you dripped in a little bit about how your journey and the exposure to your father really shaped and framed where you are today and what you do today. But I'd like for you to just briefly share a little bit about the story, a little bit about that journey, that really how it was in those early years, and what really was that pivoting point that said, no, this is what I'm going to take from that lesson.
Yes, I mean, I'm still living it, to be very honest. I certainly underestimated how much I would continue reflecting as an entrepreneur on the way that my dad practiced and what he did in life. and what for me success means. Like, it's so normal to say it means a lot of money, a lot of security, maybe some bragging rights, and you get to walk around looking fancy. Like, but that's really, it's not it, especially if
Mm.
you come by it in unsavory ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, so my growing up, my father, as I knew it, was in construction independently. We grew up very, very poor, far below the poverty line, and constantly, struggling and knowing we were, a few days from eviction. So, a high stress environment from a young age. And it wasn't until, a few years after college, I really started asking questions for a funny reason. My whole family is in Texas, and my mom was born and raised in San Antonio, lived on a farm. I grew up running around on that same farm, still there
Mm.
today. And my birth certificate, it says I was born in Overland Park, Kansas. And I don't know why I never quite asked the question why. You have to give your place of birth all of the time as an adult. And I guess I always assumed I have two siblings. There's four of us, and two of us all have the same mom, and then the other two have the same mom, and we all share a dad. And they were up in Kansas, so I assumed, we had just moved there to be close to them or something. Was not the case. The long and short of it was in the late 80s when I was born, my father was running the very like first of its time telemarketing call rooms in San Antonio. And not only was he doing that, he was traveling back and forth to Vegas to train other call centers on these practices, selling vitamins, which of course were fake, to the elderly, mostly vulnerable populations, anybody that would buy what they were selling, and calling them up and telling them, hey, congratulations, you have won a free cruise for two or some extravagant gift. The only thing you need to do is you need to pay for shipping and handling for these vitamins. You'll get the vitamins, they're great. So it's a win-win. And then we'll also send you, X, Y, and Z along with that shipment. Obviously all fraud. We know this very clearly now. Um, but he was found out by the FDA and his accounts were frozen. And he wasn't able to take credit cards over the phone. So logistically, he's out of business. So he started taking partnerships with the mafia and the mob to use their accounts. And karma is one of the big lessons for me. If you're ever thinking about going an unsavory way, um, karma came for him because unsurprisingly, in that industry, there's a lot of other seedy folks, and his CFO embezzled all of his money, putting him in a precarious situation where he couldn't pay the mob back. Rather than my understanding as a young child that we moved to the Midwest to be near family, we are actually on the run from the mob. Which now as an adult's a great story, but pretty surreal. Yeah.
Not
Um,
so much.
right. So and then the result of that was him, constantly looking backwards and trying to find his way back to something that would make him that kind of money that quickly. And unfortunately for him, but lucky for the world, that lightning in the bottle didn't hit again. We as consumers, as we do evolve with technology and get savvy. Um, and so, from there, he was constantly struggling, living hand to mouth, trying to find his next quick and easy fix of money, and it didn't work. And
Hmm.
his family paid the price for that. Um, so that's the in a nutshell. Good.
So he
Uh,
never went to jail or anything?
Never went to jail, stayed quite under the radar. He, typically, so the things that I learn about people like this are they're extremely suave, very likable. Um, yeah, he was handsome, a tall, handsome man, and friendly, like genuinely a friendly guy.
Hmm.
Um, and in fact, he was also white, a white male in the 80s and
Hmm.
90s, and didn't have a lot of fear. So much, in fact, that he also wasn't paying his taxes. And so the
Oh,
IRS was
jeez.
constantly coming for him. Like the audacity to not even feel like you need to be under the radar except for from the mob. Um, he was out doing his thing afterwards and no problems. So pretty crazy. And, I have to say, as an entrepreneur, especially starting out living hand to mouth, you can understand in a way I don't know that we would all like to admit the temptation to take some quick and fast and easy
Mm,
ways to make your money, especially when,
mm,
your mortgage payment depends on it.
yeah.
Um, so it's been a journey. I mean, thank goodness for therapy to talk through some of these things and a good husband, a good friends, because it is wild to
Yeah.
really think about, why he did what he did, why
Hmm.
people do what they do, and, what is it that I'm looking to lead with? It's not so much just about like balancing the scales and, tales of my father, which of
Yeah.
course is a part of it. Um, but it is also this, uh, I have a lot of his same abilities to communicate. I've gotten a lot of things from
Hmm.
him. How do I take that and I use it for good instead of
Yeah.
evil, right? And a lot of it I learn in school and I learn from practice and from leadership and from, talking to people that are smarter than me. But a lot of it, the ability to connect with people and to be a strong communicator and to have that emotional intelligence, for a long time,
Mm.
hated to admit that was from my dad.
Yeah.
So here we are at this existential crisis some days, and other days a real a real opportunity.
So for what you do today, how did your schooling? I mean, what did you pursue at Harvard that would help you to be able to change what you're doing and help people as you are?
Hmm. Yes. So I first got my MBA, and that, amongst many things, my family background or not, helped me just understand um where, he went wrong. I have to say, to the side, he was like an incredible carpenter, like beautiful work, really, really skilled, um, worked for himself. And it really never took off because he didn't have the business skills or the will to learn.
Hmm.
And going to business school, while expensive, and I'm a little envious now in this uh, everything's available online world. There's so
Hmm.
much to learn, but it was worth it for me as a young person starting my career to really start to see those very obvious red flags of how he was running his businesses and what the basics are and how to be responsible and sustainable.
Hmm.
But organizational psychology is a whole other thing that I could keep learning about forever. And that is something I'm still studying. And, it's very, very heavy on data, which I love, but it's also
Hmm.
really heavy on um, what do humans want and what do they need?
Yeah.
And you can certainly apply this to the workplace. That's traditionally the full, term for the industry is industrial and organizational psychology. And that's because you can apply it in all of those different
Hmm.
ways. But what we're seeing now is there's even, cities that are bringing on organizational psychologists to look at their data, to gather more data. You see people, in the grocery store asking you questions that don't seem like they're related
Hmm.
to Spectrum Cable, for example. They're asking you real world questions. They're probably organizational psychologists. Um, to help them plan their cities, even. You're seeing this a
Yeah.
lot in Europe. It's a
In
really
Malaysia too.
yes, exactly. It's really exciting because it is no longer this bottom or this top-down approach to how things will run, right? Like corporate
Mm.
structures, government structures, like we, apparently signed the social contract, which I don't recall signing, but we've just agreed this is how things work. And that is changing, where we are really saying, okay, what is sustainable? Because
Mm.
capitalism is really struggling, and we know we need it, but not like this. consumers are getting super savvy, as we said, like the modern day version to me of these scamming people
Mm-hmm.
are these course creators that are making ridiculous promises and then overcharging and then disappearing. Like this happens so much. Um, and so what we're seeing is we're tired of that. And um, even governments are at a very large scale are taking note and learning that we have to build from the bottom up and we have to take our cues from the masses if we actually
Mm-hmm.
are going to succeed long term. And that is what I have taken and how I'm building my models. Like on the one hand, it takes a lot of work to just stay up with the industry, keep up with AI, keep up with the trends and
Yeah.
with the pain points. Like I have to keep, providing services that solve for that. Um, but on the other hand, the things I can control are I know that people struggle with having capital. Like we are broke. How do we scale if we don't have a dollar?
Mm-hmm.
And when we do have a dollar, it's, spread so thin that we can't buy ads anymore, even if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, and so the way that I've structured what I do is I give a lot away for free and I don't gatekeep what I'm finding, both in my studies and just in the industry. And then I tell people, here are all of the things. Like when I'm working with somebody, day one, here's what I'm doing. Here's how onboarding works. Here's what I'm doing when I dig into their data and figure out what's going on. And I do that so that you have it if you want to try to DIY. And also because I know the value that I provide is so strong and my expertise is so strong that if they are struggling with it, now they trust me and they will come to
Mm-hmm.
me and we can partner. And then for most of my programs, I actually don't charge up front. Like I tell people, we're going to take this risk-free model because I know it works. And I'm not going to charge you a dollar. Let's agree on a 50-50 split when sales come in, or if you and your team want to handle the bulk of it and you just need, my input at the top, we can do an 80-20 split, but I'm not charging you. Like, let's put this in writing that we're partners on this. And that has been game changing, I think, for me and for my clients because,
Yeah.
it's risk free and it's built in trust that I'm just as invested. Um, and all of that really does come from this new big exciting shift that we're seeing in the way that we're building our everything, our whole world. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have a real opportunity here.
So, um, a lot of us use virtual assistants, and so one of the things that you talk about is you say or a question I guess that's out is for more profit, should I pay my team more and how does that work? Because a lot of we're looking for the lowest cost so that since we're not perhaps bringing in that much money yet, and so we may pay someone from another country as our VA
Hmm.
their wage, which is not what we would pay someone from the US.
Hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yes, I have so many thoughts. The way I try to explain it is, I'll flip it for a moment and use us as business owners as an example in terms of marketing. So, we all are very familiar with ChatGPT and all of the AI that comes with that. And I personally, I do really like it. It saves me a ton of time.
Me
I
too.
found, right? I mean, innovation is wonderful. What we have to protect ourselves against is cannibalism. Like whenever we're inventing
Mhm.
something and then, we're
Yeah.
ruining something else, right? Um, and what we're seeing is so there's Chat GPT, but what is also coming is Search GPT, and that is Google. They have partnered with Microsoft, with OpenAI, and they've done this because they know that ChatGPT is putting them out of a job. I can go to
Mhm.
ChatGPT. Why would I go to search in Google, right?
Mhm.
And what we're seeing is they have adopted this proactively. They're working on it now, and they know when they hit that go button, it will cannibalize their Google search. And as a result, any Google ads, like all of those sponsored
Yeah.
results you see, right? And so what they are doing is they are now, the last year, I'd say, charging double, triple, quadruple for ads what they have been charging.
Mm.
So we're all left scrambling saying, okay, I've been spending $1,000 on ads for the last 3 years and it's been working. I spent so much time getting my ads exactly in front of the right audience. I nailed the algorithm. I got the copyright.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on? And now I'm out of money because now I've realized if I pay 2,000, then fine, I can get what I was getting for 1,000, right?
Yeah.
They're doing this. I mean, it's purely greed. They're doing this because
Yeah.
they know when they hit go, all of this current revenue stream is gone. They'll
Mm-hmm.
redefine how they're getting revenue, but they are proactively preempting, like they know they're creating this problem for themselves. So they're charging all of us and taking it from us
Mm-hmm.
without adding value. Now we're all broke. And also not paying for ads.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then, right, then, and as a result, we're getting less leads. We are seeing what is happening in the economy. Inflation's super high. Using ads as an example, $1,000 is not getting you $1,000 of ads. You have to pay
Correct.
two.
Right.
So this problem in this one example, it compounds itself across a whole industry, hundreds
Mm-hmm.
of thousands of people, and then that trickles out. And so I use that because it's so personal to all of us and affects our families and our bottom lines and then affects the economy. The reverse of that is if we stop the wheel for a moment and say, okay, I can't control what they're doing. And, Meta and Google are bigger than ever. They control everything. What can control? And for me, I still have to stop my negative self-talk saying, like, well, what I do doesn't matter because that's not true. And it feels
Mm-hmm.
better to at least know I'm doing something, like something in my control.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The
Exactly.
coping, helps me cope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if we take our virtual assistants, or, I have graphic designers and I have operations partners here that help me just survive. Um, I share everything with them. Like I have a bottom line, but I pay them well, far above what's standard. And a lot of it is also a revenue share. So like if I'm in a revenue share agreement, then I share that with them, which works for all of us. We're all super invested. And then I have for myself on my, profit and loss and my road mapping, I say, okay, here's my goals for myself. If I can hit, let's say, $5 million dollars in profit, out of my share with my partners. Anything over that is out, is just a wonderful bonus. So, I've already paid what I've agreed to pay to my partners and my employees. Everything after that is just a share amongst all of us. Like I don't need that extra 5 to 7 or 10 or, whatever. Um, because that was just a pure bonus. And
Mm-hmm.
rather than being a Google or a Meta and saying, great, I'm just going to get really greedy and become a dragon hoarding my
Yeah.
gold,
Right.
I'm gonna share that and let's celebrate the wins. So it feels good, but it also has the exact reverse effect that we're seeing with these huge corporations and what they're doing. And it's even more impactful when you do have people overseas working for you, which I am actually very pro. They are very talented and it's an untapped
Mm-hmm.
market. It's even more impactful when you pay them an American wage, like
Mm-hmm.
imagine. So we see studies over and over saying, when you provide a living wage, it helps them obviously secure a home, secure food for their family,
Yeah.
but it also helps them ensure they can send their kids to school. They
Mm-hmm.
can, so then, children are getting an education, that they can go out and buy other things, of course. Um, and then, for example, the wage gap comes into this, women are still making, I think it's 83 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing on the macro scale. McKinsey came out with a study a while ago, I think it was a few months ago, saying that if we just closed that gap collectively, that it would create 28 billion or no trillion dollars
Mm-hmm.
in global GDP. And so just closing that gap gives all of us that much more money and it
Mm-hmm.
boosts the economy by $28 trillion dollars across the
Mm-hmm.
world, right?
Yeah.
So, the stock market you see being volatile and struggling, inflation that you see acting crazy, your dollar being cut in a third, all of those things at a global scale change the minute that
Mm-hmm.
we start closing those gaps. Um, so that's actually my long-winded answer. But I mean, you could go on forever about what that would mean
Yeah.
for a family, which feels incredible whenever you can help one family do those things. And to be fair, it is an equal exchange when you're really, really happy with the work that they're providing you.
Hmm.
But it does go so much further than what we traditionally talk about keeping your employees happy and keeping retention high, which does save you money
Yeah.
individually as a boss, keeps quality up. But at a global scale, it actually has
Yeah.
these incredible impacts.
And it's so true. I my last company that I worked for almost 27 years, they began over 100 years ago, and the founders felt that they should always make the people that were helping run the organization be part of that revenue, the profits and all that. And so they gave stock, and it made a lot of the employees very wealthy.
Mhm.
And they're, as you said, that impacts their family, it's the neighborhoods, the schools, the economy,
Mhm.
everything. And so what you say is just so wonderful to hear and like a breath of fresh air. I'd love for you to share maybe a success story so the audience can understand um, how your email marketing strategy is impacting your clients,
Mhm.
both their revenue and their engagement.
Definitely. Yes. So when I say email marketing, people tend to kind of glaze over a little bit. It's a symptom of what we talked about with this like
Yes,
self-cannibalization. We just have
yes.
forgotten, right? And it feels outdated. It feels, um, you know, just very 1990s, and it is not. Like I have to shout it from the rooftops. It's not. You need it. Um,
Hmm.
and so I will say two things about that. I would say first, everything I said about ads, um, I am a success story, and about 50% of my clients right now are a success story because we do not pay a dollar for ads. We don't do it
Yeah.
anymore. It's not needed. And it's useless. So, there's that. It's too
Hmm.
expensive. Um, so that's the big takeaway for me. But the email marketing strategy itself is also really exciting and fun to watch. So what we have done is built a really simple, it's just 3 steps, and it's mostly about being a human. Found a way. So, we take our clients' email list, and let's say you have just 100 people right now, just for this example. This client, had a few thousand, but you take it and you rank it from 1 to 100. And you say, okay, number one is going to be my most profitable client, or it could be my most engaged person. Like maybe if this is a mix of clients and people who follow me, it could be someone who is opening all of your emails, listening to your podcasts, they're liking you on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you are, LinkedIn,
Hmm.
commenting. You rank them from 1 to 100. Then you take that top 10% and you reach out to them, not with a bot, not with AI. You or your team send directly to them an email saying, hey, how's it going? Like, how is business? The world's crazy. Just checking in. Like, how are you doing?
Hmm.
And I would say like half to 75% of them will respond with some pain points. The other
Yeah.
25%, it's very typical of us to be like, oh no, everything's great. Sales are wonderful. We're doing great. Kind of gaslighting ourselves a little bit, and
Hmm.
and we don't want to talk about it because, maybe we're
Makes you
crying or
sad.
we're crying. Yeah. We're not ready. But for those that do, let's say it's
Mhm.
half for this, conservative example. They're telling you directly like what they are struggling with in very specific ways. For this client, it was engaging on a new offer that they thought would be like really, really resonating with their audience. And they couldn't understand. Like it was a new service, but it aligned with everything they'd done before. It was more affordable. And engagement just was not there. And um, so you then go back to the drawing board once you have this feedback. You've listened to your clients, they've told you specifically what's happening to them. You go back with your team or you sit down at your desk and you say, okay, here's their problems. They just gave me some free, it's basically free R&D, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
which is wonderful. Free focus group. And you think, okay, what can I offer or have I offered in the past that might be able to solve these problems in
Mm.
some way? Something that they're not already doing, they haven't already tried, and that I can offer to them, um, and it was something that they would buy, right? That would
Hmm.
answer the question, they'd be excited. So you come up with this and you take it back to them and say, here's what I've come up with. I know you didn't ask me to, but I hated hearing about your pain points. We worked together before. I'm thinking that this might work for you. As a thank you, here's, 20% off up front, or, something to boost goodwill for what they've just provided you. And then you also offer that to the rest of your email list, because what you've really gotten is a small sample that you can probably extrapolate that the rest of that
Hmm.
list is struggling with something like this too.
Yeah.
Then you offer it to the whole list, and the first of all, the response is huge. This client, I mean, overnight was bringing in their you know package and program was about $10,000, and so you get 10 new clients, and you just made $100,000 without a
Yeah.
dollar on ads. Um, and so that's exactly what happened for them, and is what is happening, across the board. And you can apply this even to products and product services. I mean, you can apply this because it's just being a human and talking to your people that already trust
Yeah.
you.
Hmm.
And then the third part of it that is really exciting and just, it gets me up in the morning, this change in how we do business, is after this works, you reach back out to everyone on that list that made a purchase, and you say, hey, um, I hope it's going well, checking in, seeing how you're liking it. And also, I have an ask now. Do you know anybody in your circle that might benefit from this? Or they have an audience that could
Hmm.
benefit from this? Because I really want to set up some like equal value partnerships. Maybe it's
Hmm.
something, I have a partner that I'm working with now where they're doing helping people write newsletters, or not so much writing the content, but like helping them um
Structure and all that.
structure it. Yes, exactly. And that's not something I offer, right? Like I do the copy, but I don't do the structure. So it's like a mutual partnership that is 50-50, where we're referring back and forth to each other.
Hmm.
um and I send out on my email list like, hey, you should check these guys out, like I vetted them, their quality is great, so people that trust me are now going to them, and vice versa. um and then you have a whole other revenue stream that you never even thought
Yeah.
about, that tends to be, zero work,
Right.
essentially.
Right. Because they're
And
doing the marketing for you.
yes, and we are all at this small business level, like small and medium businesses, I think equally exhausted by these big corporations and what they're doing to us. And so the willingness and excitement to set up these partnerships and just to do it on our own is huge. Like there's a
Yeah.
real opportunity here. Like, opportunity is a lot of work and a little bit of luck with timing,
Yeah.
and this is the time.
I love partnerships. It is the time has flown by.
Yeah.
Loved having this conversation, and I know that people have gotten a lot of great insight, advice, and maybe sparked some further questions that they might want to get in touch with you about. So I'm going to share, as always, my screen that has the contact information for
Mhm.
Cat. I urge those that are just listening to go grab a paper and pen. But if you don't, you can go to my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please do subscribe if you've not done so. And you also can get it in the show notes on my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So the website is emailrevamp.com. On LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, you can go to cat_Valverde, and that's Valverde. I'm going to turn it over to Kat to talk to you about her call to action today, and where she spends the most time in that social media if you wanted to DM her. Kat, it's all yours.
Yes, yes. So please do go to emailrevamp.com. There is where I have in great detail, it's about half hour video workshop where I outline everything I just briefly explained about spending $0 and making 100K, by the end of the year, really, if you hit it now. You can watch that there. There's also a link on that page to set up some time with me on my calendar if you want to chat. Um, if you're looking to partner as well, we do have a new pilot program to help businesses dig into their email list starting next week. And also every week after that for the rest of the year. So come at us. And, also on LinkedIn, especially, I read and respond to all of my DMs. So if you want to talk on a more personal, informal note, you can find me there very easily. And on all my social channels, we are basically sharing fun little tidbits about these sorts of programs and the results we're seeing.
Awesome. So, Kat, so wonderful chatting with you. We'll have to have you back for other things that we do so that you can continue to spread your message. I think it's one that needs to be heard. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.